What's up, everybody? This is PS1818, and welcome to the very first Friday Devotional Motovlog. Today I want to talk to you guys about a passage that has really influenced me a lot. It's a really famous passage. A lot of people know about it, but as I grew in my faith, I really learned many things from this passage. 2013 was a year for me of faith and obedience. Two things that are really hard to learn, especially when you're stubborn and strong-headed like myself. You don't like to obey, and you don't like to trust if there's no physical evidence. And so faith was really hard for me. It still is. I've improved a lot, but it's still super hard, as many of you guys can attest to, and obedience is just as hard, if not even more hard, being obedient to His will and His calling. And so guys, today I want to talk to you guys about a passage in Matthew chapter 14, starting in verse 22, I think, and it's the famous passage of Jesus walking on the water and Peter stepping out in the boat and following after him. And so if you guys haven't read that passage yet, it's pretty good. You should go ahead and do that. But I'm pretty sure most of you have heard the story already. You know, the disciples are out in the water, right? And they're rowing this boat, and it's the fourth watch, I believe. I think it talks about that in, if not in Matthew, then also in book of Mark, I believe. Sorry, I can't open my Bible right now and check, so so I'll post a correction annotation on the screen if I need to. But anyways, it's the fourth watch of the night, right? Which means it's each watch is 2 hours long, and so they're beginning their 7th or 8th hour, somewhere in the middle, right? In the middle of the night, and they're rowing this little boat in a storm. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a boat in a storm before, but it's not fun. And what I'm saying is, I've never been in a boat in a storm, but I've been in a boat with some like moderately large waves, not even an issue, and I was freaking out. The boat was being thrown around. It was a little 6-person fishing boat, and I was being thrown around the boat. My butt was leaving the seat. It was pretty freaky, not gonna lie. So I can only imagine what the disciples are going through right now. And they have to mow it by themselves. Sorry, not mow it. Row it by themselves, rather than having a motor push them along. But anyways, it's the fourth watch of the night. They've been rowing for a long time, and they're undoubtedly exhausted and tired, both physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, just burnt out, and they're ready for this storm, this boat, this water business to be done. And they've been hanging out with Jesus for a while now. You know, they should theoretically be able to recognize him. They've seen him do miracle upon miracle upon miracle, healings, and you know, making the lame walk and making the blind see and all that business, right? Feeding thousands of people with a little boy's lunch, right? And they should have understood Jesus's power by now, right? His ability by now, his deity by now. But we see their fallenness in this next portion when Jesus decides to walk out into the storm, on the storm. He's like walking in a storm. I don't understand how that works, but you know, hey, Jesus is God. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. And he's walking, and they see him there, but they don't recognize him. Probably maybe because they're tired, right? And maybe because you know, whatever reason, they don't recognize him. And then they think, oh my goodness, it's a ghost, and they freak out. And then they worry. And Jesus responds to that, not with anger or impatience, as many of us would. Sometimes I get a little upset at my students when they call me a different teacher's name. I've been your teacher for over a year and a half now, and you're still calling me Teacher Barry. No offense to Teacher Barry. But you know, it upsets me a little. It doesn't make me mad or anything. I just kind of make fun of them a little bit, tease them a little bit, and say, hey, do I look like Teacher Barry to you? But of course, Jesus doesn't do any of that, and I should learn from his example. But he's not upset. He's not impatient with how the disciples are unable to recognize him. They call him a ghost and they freak out. And Jesus just says, don't worry. Actually, quote, he says, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And here's the thing, Jesus says this, right? It's his voice, it's his mouth, it's his body, it's his miracle, and the disciples are still unable to believe. And we see this through Peter's response. He says to him, "Lord, if it is you, then command me to come out onto the water." Right? And that "if" tells us a lot about the state of Peter's mind, right? And the state of Peter's heart also. And his mind and his heart were filled with doubt at this point. If he knew that Jesus was Jesus and he was sure of it, he had no doubt. He would have just said, "Okay, Jesus," or "Lord," without the "if, command me to come out onto the water." Right? And he asked Jesus for this command, for Jesus to be able to kind of prove himself to him. It's like a test. "Okay, Jesus, if you are who you are, give me the ability to walk on water and I'm gonna believe you." Now when we say it like that, it sounds a little pompous, right? It sounds really doubting. But Jesus, of course, being the patient God that he is, he says, "Okay, just come." He says one word, "Come." And Peter, being the faithful follower that he is, gets out of the water, puts his foot down, and he walks. Now this is we're going to continue the story in a little bit, but what I learned most from this story was Peter's action. It's one thing to say that, yeah, I believe in God, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but it's another thing to actually go out and do it, in spite of any doubt that you might feel. I had a student once ask me a long time ago, "What if I doubt? What if I doubt that God is real? What if I doubt that Jesus is who he says he is? What if I doubt," young Christian, he was in middle school, right? What if I doubt that he's gonna come through with the promises that he's made to me?" And I said, you know what? It's okay to doubt. The disciples doubted. Peter doubted, as we're seeing here. He doubted with that big fat "if" of his. But you know what? In spite of the mental doubt that he might have had, the block, or maybe an emotional block, he still did it anyways. And of course, we know that in the book of James it says that faith without works is dead. Not works like legalism works, but faith without action, without actually doing something, is dead. Right? And there are a lot of fake Christians out there. I'm sorry, but I just gotta say it. There are a lot of people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian, whatever," and then they literally do nothing about it. There's nothing in their lives that would demonstrate that this person is a follower of Christ. Right? We see no behaviors changed, no intention has changed. Maybe they're still a nice person, but we all know that niceness isn't enough to get you into heaven. Niceness isn't enough to demonstrate that you're adopted into the family of God, right? Niceness isn't enough to demonstrate that the Holy Spirit is working in you. And so faith without action, without works, is dead. Now, while Peter doubted mentally, his actions displayed otherwise. He got out of that boat and walked out into the water. And this next part is my favorite part. He's walking and he's walking and walking, right? And he gets distracted by the storminess, the big waves and the wind and the craziness and the death that undoubtedly would await him had he not had a Jesus there. And he takes his eyes off of Christ. His focus is here, focused on Jesus, and he veers away. And that causes him to sink. Now imagine you have the ability to walk on water, right? You're walking, it feels like ground, everything's cool, and then suddenly you don't have the ability to walk on water anymore. It suddenly is water. It's like stepping on the edge of your pool and then taking a step and then seeing what happens. You fall and you fall fast. It's as if there's no water there. It's like just stepping off of a cliff. Now, and this isn't, this storm isn't like your swimming pool. It's craziness. There are waves and wind everywhere. I'm sure his balance was off, right? And of course, that is a terrifying thing to experience. You're there with Jesus. You're standing on something that seems solid. You take your eyes off of Jesus, and that rock, that solidness is gone. He falls down into the water. And then he's probably thinking, yep, I'm going to die. And it says in Scripture, in Matthew 14, that immediately Jesus reaches down and grabs him. Immediately. And so when you're walking out on the waves there and you fall, none other than Jesus Christ himself reaches down and grabs you to save you. It says he takes Peter, puts him on the boat, and he gets in the boat and the wind stops. Everything stops. There's no more storm. Nothing left there to harm him. Right? And of course, we're not talking about literally walking on the water here. This is definitely metaphorical. The wind and the storms and the waves represent the difficult things that we may face in life, the temptation and the sin and the hardship and the injustice that all of us witness. And there are some important things that we can learn here from how Peter responded. First thing was, he asked God for something. Right? Jesus says, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And Jesus asks him for something. You know what he asks for? He asks for a command. He knows who his commander is. He knows that he can't do it by himself, and he's depending on Jesus. And he says, command, even though he's doubting. Next thing that Peter does is he takes action. Jesus says, come, one word, and he takes action. Right? Third thing that Peter does is he looks away. And while we may not intend to look away and get distracted, we do. Right? Things get in our way so easily. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And lastly, oh no, I skipped one. Before he gets distracted, he obeys. Jesus says, come. And then he's like, he could have easily been like, oh wait, nope, never mind. I don't want to go. I don't want to go because it's dangerous. I'm not going to step out over there. He obeys. And then he gets distracted, which we undoubtedly do. And the last thing that Peter does is he gets rescued. Right? And what a testament to how God works in our lives, right? We doubt, we ask, he responds and commands, we obey, we fall, and he rescues. That's pretty awesome, right? When I first moved to Taiwan a year and a half ago, I had no idea what was going to happen. I gave up a lot of things that were important to me. I gave up my home, things that I was comfortable with. I gave up a fairly easy life. I was in a serious relationship at the time, and it was very, very hard to leave her. I gave up a lot of things, and it was hard, and it was scary. And the reason I was able to do it this time, come to Taiwan, is because last time I felt called to do something. I was too chicken, and I didn't do it. Last time was going into full-time ministry for Campus Crusade, and I wanted to please my parents, and of course that's important too. But I was scared to tell my parents that I didn't want to go to grad school. I wanted to go into full-time ministry, but nope, I went to grad school, and here I am. Not saying that grad school is bad, of course. Grad school is fine. But anyways, you guys, faith and obedience, action in spite of doubt, is something that I had a chance to learn through this passage in Matthew chapter 14, and I really hope that you guys learned something too. Right? Have you ever had any type of experience like this? Something that you thought you couldn't do, you stepped out in faith, trusted God, and he rescued you and took care of you? I know that he did for me. If you had something like that, go ahead and post about it in the comments. I'd love to read about it. Till next time, guys, this is PS 1818. Peace and grace. See ya.